Today I'm checking out this battery that was sent to me at no cost so that I could do this review. This is everything that comes in the box when you open it up. It does have protectors over the terminals on the battery, these little plastic connectors. That's pretty normal. It does come with the bolts that are needed for the terminals, and it comes with the protection caps that you put on top of those bolts when you're done tightening everything down. And it also comes with a user manual that goes over the specs and everything, how to run it in parallel and series, and all the basic specs about this battery. Outside of the manual, you actually have on top of this, there's a sticker up here that shows you how to hook this up in parallel or in series. And most of the specs are all right here. It is a 12.8 volt battery, which 100 amp hour capacity. The real capacity is measured here in the watt hours, 1,280 watt hours, which is equivalent to 100 amp hours at 12.8 volts. The charge voltage is 14.4, maxing at 14.6. That's pretty standard. And charge current is 100 amp max. Here it says standard charge is 50 amps, and again, max is 100 amps. So they don't want you really on a normal basis charging more than the 50 amps, but it will go up to 100 amps to charge. Continuous peak discharge. So it can do 100 amps, which is very standard, but it also can do 200 amps for up to 3 seconds. So that's the peak. And these are the operating temperatures for charge and discharge. So all very standard. It's nice that they actually give you some information about its peak. I'm going to get this battery right here charged up all the way. We're going to do a capacity test on this. Let's just see how much we get out of this thing. All right, so now I've got this battery fully charged. I've got this 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter that I have wired to the terminals on this battery. And then in between that, I have this little battery monitor that is running and monitoring power through this shunt. And I'm gonna go ahead and hook it up. I've got everything zeroed out. The battery has a resting voltage right now of 13.4. The battery charger said it was 100% charged. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get this capacity test started. I'm going to be using this inverter to run this 5000 BTU portable air conditioner that we have. That's why that's plugged in here, to put the load on the battery. All we're really doing is looking at the capacity that we're going to get out of this battery, and I'm using this AC unit to pull that load. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing on. It makes some noise during its self-test. One of the things to note here is the voltage that the inverter is saying that it's getting, 13.32 versus the 13.4. These are pretty close. I added extra wires to this inverter so that way I can make sure that I'm getting a better amount of current and less resistance through these wires to make sure the inverter is just, getting the highest voltage it can from this. And adding a double pair did help increase the voltage to the inverter a little better. So that way when this gets to a low voltage, it's closer to the voltage of the actual battery and not a big spread in between. The other thing is with this AC unit, when the compressor kicks on, it will jolt and peak the power up to quite a bit. I've seen it go up to around 2 kilowatts. So that's about 2000 watts. When it's normally running, it's at 4 to 5. It creeps up to around 6 or so as the pressure in the unit gets, higher. But it does a really good job of putting a good load on this battery. Right now it's at 85 because only the fan is running. But in a moment, that AC compressor is going to kick on. It's going to jolt up the wattage up pretty high. Not more than the inverter can handle, but we'll see how well the battery can handle that peak ampage. I'm pretty sure this battery is going to do just fine. And then I'm going to let this run and come back to the video when the voltage gets pretty low on the battery, which means it's getting down to the end of its capacity, and we'll just see how well it did. So the compressor did kick on, and I saw a little bit of a peak. It didn't really catch it for me real well. But as you can see now, it is running in the 500 watt range. Like I said, that probably will creep up into the 6, sometimes even the 700. It's a good load. It's putting, less than half of the amp load on the battery. The battery was able to handle that peak jolt with no problem. And if you look at the inverter versus the actual monitor here, we're looking at about 1/10 of a volt difference, which is more than adequate with the wiring and everything. So we should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and let this thing run. I'm going to come back when I hear either the low voltage beeping from the inverter, or I'll keep an eye on this when it gets kind of low so we can just see, you know, what happens at the end of this battery. All right, so we're getting pretty low. We've already pretty much hit the capacity of this battery. The voltage is starting to get kind of low. The fans on the inverter are going because it actually just kicked down from the compressor. The compressor turned off, now it's just got the fan. That's because the air coming out of the AC unit is still really cold. So it's in fan mode. But since we're at the voltage that we are at, as you can see here, it's 10.9. This one's saying 10.8. And we're at the amp hour and almost all the way up to the full watt hour that this battery would pretty much max out at. I'm assuming that if the compressor kicks back on, it's either going to kick on and it's going to turn this inverter off for low voltage, or it's going to let the compressor kick on and then really quickly end up turning off because it's just used up the rest of the power. All right, so the inverter did get to low voltage, and that was because the compressor tried to kick on again, and it spiked up to a point where this just didn't have enough power left into it to give it that amount of ampage, and then it kicked down. It says 1.27 kilowatt hours, which is 1,270 something watt hours, which is right in line with the specs of the battery. It has still a little bit of voltage left in it, so it probably could pretty easily pass that if it would just keep running on something that wasn't going to surge like the AC unit does. So it definitely met its capacity. It could handle the surges that were needed or required of it to run the AC unit when it kicks on. And if the price was right on this, I would have no problem building a big solar battery array out of this battery. Everything it said it would do, it did. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get all this unhooked, we're gonna charge it up, but I'm gonna also cut this battery open so we can see exactly what's inside of this battery, but that's gonna be in my next video. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get notified when my next video that I have uploaded where I cut this battery open and we take a peek inside of what's actually inside that battery. I'll have a link down in the description where you can go check this battery out. I hope this information was helpful. Thank y'all very much for watching. Y'all take care.